Hi friends, I welcome you all to this video lecture and the title of this lecture is going to be the heart, and I am Karthik. I am going to make this presentation to you. Our team leader is Mr. Ponmurugan Selvam, and another team member is Mr. Navaraja P. So we all have together made this video lecture, and I am Karthik. I am going to proceed with the lecture. So in this lecture we are going to talk about the heart. The main reason why we are going to discuss about the anatomy of the heart is we have to talk about the ECG in the next lecture. So if you want to really understand the electrocardiogram ECG, then we should know how the heart works and what are the different parts of the heart. So that is what we are going to see in this lecture. So first of all, what is the heart? The heart is a four-chambered pump. So basically it has a four chamber, it is a pump. It has two upper chambers called as atrium. So they are for the collection of the blood, and there are two lower chambers called as ventricles. So these ventricles, what they do is they pump the blood from the heart, you know, to the other parts of the body basically. So in the next slide we are going to see a schematic representation of the heart. Okay, and in that diagram we can see the what are the different chambers and vessels connecting to the heart, and the resting or the filling phase of a cardiac chamber is called diastole. So when there is a filling of blood taking place in the any chamber that is in any four chambers of the heart, then that is called as the diastole. And if any contracting or pumping is taking place in any chamber, then that condition is called as the systole. Now we can see a very beautiful diagram of the heart. So this diagram represents the different chambers of the heart, different valves, vessels, and the conducting system of the heart. So as we discussed, the heart has four chambers. One here, right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, and left ventricle, four chambers. And what happens in heart, you will see. So you can see this blue color over here. So this is a tube, you know, called as the superior vena cava, and this is inferior vena cava. And this blue color here indicates the deoxygenated blood. So deoxygenated blood means the blood with very less oxygen or with more carbon dioxide. So what happens is the deoxygenated blood enters through these two pipes to the heart, and blood comes to the right atrium. So when the right atrium is completely filled with the blood, it will contract, so that one gateway here, one gate called as the valve, opens, and the blood from the right atrium enters into the right ventricle. So after this chamber gets completely filled with the blood, what happens? This right ventricle will contract, and this right ventricle will pump the blood to the lungs through this pipe called as pulmonary trunk or pulmonary artery. So in the lungs, what happens is the deoxygenated blood, that is the blood without oxygen or blood with less oxygen, will get purified in the lungs. So the oxygen in the lungs is added into the blood. Now blood becomes the oxygenated blood or blood with oxygen. So that, or we can call it as a pure blood. So that oxygenated blood enters into the heart through these veins, you can say. So this here you can see the red color indicates the oxygenated blood entering. Oxygenated blood enters through these pulmonary veins, and then they will come to the left atrium. So after the oxygenated blood is completely filled, you know in the left atrium, then there is a gate here called as a valve. So that valve here will open, and then blood from left atrium gets transferred to the left ventricle. So when the blood is completely filled in the left ventricle, then left ventricle will contract, and then it will pump the oxygenated blood to the different parts of the body through this tube called as aorta. So in aorta, in this tube also there is a gateway, so that will open and then blood goes through aorta and then it goes to the different parts of the body. So again the red color here represents the oxygenated blood. So only the oxygenated blood is pumped to the different parts of the body, because different organs in the body need the blood with oxygen for them to work. If there is no oxygen supply to the different parts of the body, then they will not work, organs will not work properly. So from this discussion what we can see is, heart is doing two things. Heart is pumping the deoxygenated blood to the lungs through this pulmonary artery, and then heart is pumping the oxygenated blood to the different parts of the body through aorta. And in the working of the heart, we can see there is a pumping action taking place, or we can say contraction is taking place. Suppose there is a water pump at your home, you know so how the water is getting pumped at your home? There is a motor, right? So motor gets a current from the main supply, and then the current is there in the motor, and the motor will rotate, and then due to the rotating action the water is pumped, to the upper tank, from lower to the upper tank. So there in your home water pump there is a current delivered to the motor for pumping. In the same way, what God has done is, God has designed this pump, and God, or nature you can say, has also provided current supply to this pump, heart. So that current supply is provided using the node here called as the SA node. So SA node is called as the natural pacemaker of the heart. So it provides the electrical impulses to the right atrium and left atrium. So they provide this node called as SA node. Sinoatrial node provides the electrical impulses to the right atrium and left atrium. There is another node called AV node. So the current from SA node is transferred to this AV node through the internodal fibers, through some natural wires here, fibers, and then from AV node they are transferred to the ventricles through the Purkinje fibers. So these are the Purkinje fibers. You can see in the black in color. They are like wires. They carry the current from the AV nodes to ventricles. So from SA node, atriums, both atriums will get current for contraction, and from AV node, the ventricles will get current for pumping. So this is how the electrical activity is taking place. See how wonderful the God has designed this beautiful pump, with also the current supply. And here the current supply is from the power station of present in the body. You know what is power station? That is from the brain. Of course, from the brain, this battery we can say is getting the current. So like that, in every parts of our body is getting the current, because there is a contraction is taking place in every parts of the body. So in our body there is complete of power supply or electricity is going on. So this slide indicates whatever we discussed in the previous slide, and you can actually refer to this slide for the further clarification. And this slide also mentions the name of the valves we were talking about. So the valves, we said that the valves will open for the blood to get transferred from one chamber to other chamber, and these valves are like a gateway, only one way. Blood can enter only in one direction through this valve. If the blood is entering in the opposite direction through these valves, then there is a problem in the heart. Now we can see a block diagram here. The complete heart is being made in the form of a block diagram. So what does this block diagram indicates? This block diagram indicates that there are small veins and large vein connected to the heart, and the velocity of blood in these veins are of some values here, like 1 centimeter per second. Large vein is velocity of blood is 2 centimeter. Like that, there are small arteries and large arteries, from the heart to the other parts of the body, and the velocity of blood in these arteries also are mentioned here. And if there is the change of this velocity of blood, then there is some problem in the heart, we can say. And also we have seen how the right atrium, left atrium, how the ventricles are getting power supply, right, current. So here it is mentioned. So the atrium gets current supply from the sinoatrial node, and from sinoatrial node current is transferred to AV node through the intermodal fibers, and then the right ventricle and left ventricle will get current from the AV node. And here the velocity of current impulses or electric impulses are mentioned here. So if there is any problem in the velocity of impulses, also we can say there is some problem in the heart. And here we can see the electrical system of the heart. So electrical, we can know that there is some electrical activity happening in the heart. So that can be recorded as a signal in the form of a graph that is called as the electrocardiogram. So we are going to see about electrocardiogram after this lecture, in the next video lecture. So how the ECG signal is acquired is through the placing the electrodes on the chest, and then the ECG signal acquired from the chest, okay, they are of very low voltage in the form of millivolts, so they have to be amplified. So amplifier will be there in this conditioning block. Also the ECG will be mixed, corrupted with a lot of noises from other parts of the body. So in other parts of the body also the electrical impulses get corrupted into the ECG, okay, like the electrical signals from the nerves get combined with ECG, and the electrical activity from the eyes, that they combine into the ECG. So that all these things are noises for the ECG, that is removed by the filter which is there in the conditioning block. Then if you want to process the ECG signal in a computer, we have to convert the analog ECG signal into digital. So that is done by A to D converter, analog to digital converter. Then the analyzing block is the computer. Is a computer where we can actually process the signal, where we can analyze the each and every component of the ECG signal, whether we can analyze the voltage, we can analyze the frequency, and say that whether is there any abnormality in this signal or working of the heart. So the left ventricle contracts very strongly because it pumps very hard, because we have seen the left ventricle pumps the blood to the different parts of the body through a tube called aorta. Since it has to pump the blood to different parts of the body, the contraction of the left ventricle will be the strongest among other chambers, you know. And due to the higher level of importance of contraction of ventricles, the terms systole and diastole are applied to the ventricles by default. Systole means we have already seen. What is systole? Systole is what is systole? We have already seen. So systole and diastole, and the heart rate or is controlled by the SA node. We have seen that SA node is giving current to the heart, right? So that current it is receiving from the brain, and the SA node controls the heartbeat. SA node controls the heartbeat, because heart beating means it is like pumping, and then the firing rate of impulses from SA node, it is controlled from the autonomous and central nervous systems. So it is leading to the delivery of the neurotransmitters called acetylcholine or epinephrine. Okay, so the electrical impulses given from the SA node, that is controlled by the autonomous and central nervous system. So they deliver the chemicals called as the acetylcholine, and acetylcholine means it is a neurotransmitter chemical which will transmit the current electrical impulse from one neuron to the another neuron. And the normal heart rate is 70 beats per minute. So if the heart rate is very low, like 60 beats per minute, then there is a problem in the heart. So it indicates a disorder called bradycardia, So when the heart rate is very high, suppose in 200 beats per minute, then the condition is called as the tachycardia. So in these disorders,